What's going on, everyone? This is Devin here. This morning I'm just having a little fun playing around with a King 1200 grit stone. I had this soaking for a little bit. Yeah, this is the King Deluxe 1200. And I also have on standby the King 6000 grit stone. So a few people in the honing community, or some of you guys that get started, might be tempted to get the King 1K 6K combination stone. I have never owned that stone before, but I have owned the this 1200 here for quite a long time, and it's okay for a bevel setter. I really don't have anything negative to say about it. You know, for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, it's a soaking stone. I really should have let it soak a lot longer than I did, but it's a soaking stone. And, you know, so there's that. What do they call that? Like a vitrified bond or something like that? Don't quote me on that. You know, very old tech kind of thing for sharpening stone. So I'm kind of getting into this with some pressure here. Just to touch back on the pressure conversation a little bit, what I believe I'm seeing whenever I've used less pressure, especially on the coarser stone, is more of a roughing up of the bevel area and by extension the edge, rather than getting a nice clean cut from the stone, you know, that I think that I'm getting from bumping up the pressure a little bit. That's what I think is happening. I can't prove that. I don't have all these kind of like test parameters to clearly demonstrate some of this stuff, but you know, just beyond looking at things with the micro bright and that sort of thing. So I'm not really trying to feather this thing here at all, but at the same time I'm trying to keep the pressure within reasonable limits. Again, 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of pressure, you know. So the other strange thing that I believe that I'm seeing, just because I think I'm seeing it doesn't make it so, is that oddly enough I look like I get fairly deep scratches from using maybe less pressure on a freshly lapped stone versus whenever I use a bit more pressure on a stone. Like, well, we'll see this right here. It's almost as if this doesn't make any logical sense to me why it would appear to be this way. Is it appears that the scratch pattern is a little more shallow with less pressure, and this is especially evident with the coarser stones. Again, I don't know that that's actually what's happening. It could be just a trick of light. I don't know. But so I'm looking at this with the micro bright here. So I've used that 1200 a whole bunch of times, and I know what that stone looks like, or what the scratch pattern looks like for sure. And it looks like, you know, what you would think a King 1200 grit stone would look like. It's not as refined as like a 2K glass stone or a 2000 grit Shapton or a 2000 grit Naniwa Chaucera. Even the 2K Chaucera might look a little more refined, but I have to say that this doesn't look bad at all. But it's still a King. It's still an old tech stone. So it's just a matter of to what extent, you know, jumping from that stone to this 6,000 grit King. And this is the full size version of it, by the way. This is the S1. You know, this is the kind of jump you would be making more or less if you had that combination stone. I think Happy Shaver he's done a couple of videos with his 1/6 combo, and you know, I saw that video not that long ago, and it just made me want to get these stones back out, honestly, for no other reason other than my own entertainment here. So I'm going to have a little bit of a hand in the way here. I'm sorry, but I need to get in here with some pressure, because I know for a fact this stone works better when you lean into it a little bit, or a lot. At least just initially. So like this is a case where I'll do that heavy pressure thing initially, but I don't want to live here for forever. I've had a lot of mixed results with the King 6000 grit stone. To me, it looks like it leaves a pretty rough edge no matter what you do. But I've typically not used a whole lot of pressure on this stone before either. And so I'm kind of curious as to what the edge condition would look like using using a little more pressure. So definitely nowhere near having the 1K scratches out of the way. I'm already seeing some edge deterioration already, and that's the issue that I've consistently seen with this stone, even with light pressure, is that the edge just seems to very quickly start to fall apart. I don't think this stone is really the best for razors. I think it's more of a knife stone. Again, this King, even the 6K is an old tech kind of stone. These are not soaking stones, by the way. You would not want to soak these. You might be able to soak them for like maybe a minute or two, and that's about it. I generally try to avoid stones that I need following stones to help repair or cover up damage. Like I'm usually looking for a combination of stones that don't do any damage. And I've not been able to find that kind of thing with the King stones, typically. The 3000 grit King is my favorite, and that's the only one that I've seen that doesn't seem to really set me back. It seems to track right along with other stones in its grit class. So there's that to think about, and it's a relatively inexpensive stone too. So I'm just having another look here just to see how it's developing. So it's starting to clean up for sure. I'm looking for some of the one or two little chips that I started to see. I'm not really seeing those anymore. It's possible that I may have kind of honed those out a bit. I'm going to actually get rid of this stand situation here, reposition the camera where I can kind of lean into the stone a little bit more directly on the sink top. All right, so this is hopefully going to be a little bit more of a stable setup. It's a little lower, but I can kind of lean into this a little bit better. Unfortunately, my hand is going to be in the way if I do two hands, but I would rather double up with my hands on this, but I just can't because it'll destroy the view. But point is, kind of being long-winded here, if you're going to jump from a 1K, 1.2K, 1.5K, whatever, to something like a 5 or a 6K, to me it's definitely too much of a jump. I know that people make big jumps all the time. There's someone in the razor making community that jumps from an 800 grit stone all the way up to an 8,000 grit stone. I want to be careful to make sure I frame my opinion just as what it is. It's an opinion. In my opinion, I would generally not recommend those kind of jumps. I think we're about the end of all I'm going to really show on camera here. Feels like that's kind of smoothed out as much as it's going to. I mean, I can only tell so much by feel, but some people have a better sense of that than I do. But I want to look at this one more time here and just sort of look at the edge condition. So surprisingly, it is okay. So at this point, it does in fact appear to be much cleaner than I've seen in the past. It's not perfect, okay? It's not without a few little distractions and liabilities. So I don't want to misrepresent what I'm seeing here. I would still much rather use something like the Shapton Pro Shapton Kuramaku 5000 grit stone in this spot any day of the week. But it's not terrible. So it could be that guys that are really seasoned with this King move, this 1K to 6K or 1.2K to 6K. King also makes a vitrified soaker 2000 grit stone that might fit well in this spot. That stone is harder to find, and it's not particularly it's kind of an expensive stone for what it is. For some reason, you can get that 1200 grit for peanuts, but the 2K, which is really like almost the same stone, is much harder to come by, and it's a little more pricey. But the reason I say that the 2K to 6K would be maybe a bit more of a plausible jump. So here, I'm backing off the pressure quite a bit. If I thought I could have backed off the pressure a lot earlier, I would have done so. So I just maintained the pressure I was pretty sure I needed to maintain until that 1.2K work was cleaned up. And the other thing I kind of want to see is if I see a worsening of the edge condition as I attempt to back off the pressure. I'm still not at like weight of the blade. There's still a little bit of pressure here. I would say that it's kind of medium light, but I definitely want to maintain some positive pressure here. I'm not really trying to shave off of this stone anyway, so I'm not really trying to treat this like a finishing stone per se. I'm trying to treat this like any other stone that I would use in this at this point in the process here. Now I've got the smaller version of the King 6K, and it feels like a different material for sure. This is not the same. There's something different with the binder or something with this one versus the S3. And the other question I have is, what kind of material are they using on the combo stone? I don't know. I probably should have bought the combo to do the video, but I'm trying to use what I have available and make some kind of an assessment. On the 1K 6K combo, are they using this material? Or are they using material that's more like the S3, or is there yet another material they're using specifically with the combination stone? I can't really say because I don't know. And the biggest issue, the biggest disincentive for me to buy the combo stone is that I already have the 1200, I already have this bench stone, and I even have another King 6K in addition to this one. And so it just seems a little redundant for me to keep buying the same stone over and over again. So I'm definitely noticing a bump in the polish. As far as the edge condition, it's getting a little more jagged as I had backed off the pressure. a little more toothy, not the kind of thing I would really want to try to shave off of. You know, you might be able to get a plausible edge maybe if you just strop the living daylights out of this with chromium oxide or some other comparable compound. And it might be okay. I mean, it might not be unpleasant. A little lacking at the toe there, so I'm trying to get in there and do a little honing at the toe. But I might try to shave with this. I don't know. But I would definitely follow this with some kind of work on a compound. See if I can get in here with a second hand and not destroy the view. Yeah, once you get back off on the pressure a little bit, it just starts to feel so... It's not the smoothest surface in the world. It doesn't feel like particularly abrasive, but it does not have like a super inviting kind of honing feel. Just a very odd, resistant, not super smooth, but at the same time not abrasive kind of feels. Just a little bit of a puzzle of a sensation. So I guess that's a wrap on the video. Just thought I would have a little fun just playing around with these king stones. I don't really have some kind of grand point I'm trying to make here. One last look at this. Yeah, you know, it is what it is. You know, people typically don't use, as a general rule, people do not use king stones for razors. And what I'm seeing here is probably why. You know, it's, you know, the edge is a little rough. The refinement is not really what I would hope to see for stones in this, you know, razor grade stones in this grit range. I would definitely be expecting to see something a lot more refined. It's still respectable, I think, with the right compound and, you know, holding your tongue just right. You could probably still pull off some kind of a shave with this edge, which I may try. But it's made for a fun morning, you know, honing effort, which was really all I was trying to accomplish here. So again, we took a look at the King 1200 grit deluxe, and we followed that with some work, some fairly aggressive work on the King 6000 grit full size stone. This is the S1 full size, big gigantic honking stone. And maybe we'll entertain the idea of having a shave with it. You can see some of the type on this stone. But yeah, just a couple of old school stones. Not really great for razors, in my humble opinion, but made for a fun honing session. I always appreciate it whenever you guys stop by, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.